Session. All right, everybody, thank you and welcome to another episode of Parents Connect. Parents Connect is a webinar series. I'd like to call it a podcast sometimes, but it really is a webinar series where we get to have various guests come on and speak to us about parenting issues, things that generally concern kids and teens. Our target audience is between the age of 6 to 16. So you know how they say that it takes a village to raise a child, right? You know how they say it takes a village. It's not just one person's responsibility. That's what they used to say then. But now, because we're losing that community bond, that community feeling right around our country and even in our communities, we're losing it. We're building fences. Okay, we're building fences. We're gatekeeping our kids inside. So it's like the raising is left to the parents alone. This gatekeeping is for good reason, might I add, because there's been insecurity issues and all of that. So these are for good reasons. So because of our reality today, it seems like the raising of a child is left to the parents alone. And if we know what the reality is, the economic reality, both parents are usually working, or at least both of them are engaged in some form of economic activity. So, what did I say, or what did we say? We said, fine, if we're not able to raise our children physically, like have someone else help you with ideas, why don't we do that virtually? Because after all, we're in the digital age right now, and then we can leverage on technology to help in parenting. Technology has done so much in religion, in education. Why not in parenting? So that's the idea of Parents Connect. It's a circle, it's a community of like-minded parents who are interested in raising Africa's next generation of innovators, thinkers, and wow, sorry, the dogs, thinkers and change makers. My name is Akila Chikeje, and I am the founder of Early Flight Academy. Early Flight Academy is the organizer of um, Parents Connect podcast. It's Early Flight Academy that brings you Parents Connect podcast. A brief about Early Flight Academy. It's an organization that is dedicated to enhancing kids or bringing skills to them that they would ordinarily not receive in the traditional classroom setting. So skills like entrepreneurship, ICT, um, financial literacy. So these are the things that our organization is all about. So on today's episode, this is episode 5 of Parents Connect podcast. It holds twice a month, every other Thursday at 8 p.m. So if you want to invite your friends to be part of this community, please feel free to do that. I'll drop my phone number, my WhatsApp numbers for some during the session in the chat box, so you can reach out to me or our email, and please share, invite people to come on the community, because the more the merrier anyways, and then there's more value to be shared when there's lots of people, right? So going on to today's session, if you want, I've been announcing that past sessions will be available. Please, if you've not gotten the previous sessions, please do well to send me a message and we'll send you the previous sessions. On today's episode, we're going the mental health route. We're going to be talking about depression, childhood depression. But thing is, when we think about depression, when we think about mental health challenges, anxiety, it rarely crosses our minds to think about the young people. I mean, we associate depression with maybe thinking so much, thinking too much. But why? What is a child thinking about? Why should a child be depressed? I mean, they will say, what do they think at this small age? So what is the reality? Is childhood depression a real thing? Is it real? So we're here to learn. Our sessions are usually conversational. So what that means is, yes, we might have a host for today or the guest host. I'm the moderator. We have a guest host for today, but feel free when she gives the go ahead to jump in with your questions, your opinions, your suggestions. Please, it's a community and we're free to always express ourselves. So join me as I welcome our guest today. Her name is Deborah Lucky-Deekor. She's a wife. She's a mother of three children with over 10 years experience working with children and young people in various capacities. She's an author. She authored the book Motherhood, a Double-Edged Sword, a practical guide for every mother on raising godly children. She's trained as a lawyer and she went on to be further trained in positive psychology at coaching. She obtained a certification in professional life coaching. She's currently training to be certified as a personal development life coach and kids life coach. She's devoted to bringing out the best in people and situations. Please join me as I welcome Deborah Lucky-Deekor. I know you can't
Thank you,
clap, but
Kella. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you, Kella, for the invitation. And I must say, you're doing a great job. I saw the previous episodes of the Parents Connect you've been handling. And like one of your viewers said, it's quite educational and well done. Okay, so yeah, that being said, I'm a life coach, and our meeting tonight is going to be from the perspective of a life coach, not a child psychologist or a mental health professional. I'm not in that space. We are more of preventive in nature. So all our approaches is to bring out the best in people. Like why wait for the psychologist or the health mental health professionals to come in, why there are things you could do to prevent this from happening. And I love saying phrases, but I know it's night, so most of you are in bed while listening to this, some in the kitchen, but it's fine. I'll try to do with it. I work with children, so I love interacting. I love saying phrases and the expression of those I'm talking to, so I know they're connecting with me. So that being said, let me pull up my slides. So I'll be speaking from it. I don't know if you all can see. Kayla, is it on? Can you see my slide?
yes, yes, we can see your slide.
So the overview of this conversation is just to create an awareness in you and the awareness or the reality that childhood depression is real. And we don't have to wait as parents or caregivers or guardians for things to spiral out of control before stepping in. As a life coach, we roll up our sleeves. Like Kella mentioned earlier concerning all the menace in the society is not news to us anymore. And some of us, I have to go into this because you can't just sit back and watch our children suffer or drown in self-pity, pains, depression, anxiety, and you're just there wishing all goes well with them. All right. So it's safe to say our discussion tonight will be the prevention of depression in children and teens. So, what can we do as parents, teachers, guardians to um, prevent this from happening? How can we equip? How can we train? How can we parent better so our children don't become a statistics in one of these issues of depression and suicide in young people? So that's basically why we're here tonight. And so a brief outline here. So the next thing I would like to talk through, I don't know how many minutes I have, but I'll just go as quickly and as much as possible so I can give room for questions, comments, and whatever suggestion others have on this topic. So depression is a mental illness, is an illness that involves the body and mind. It affects one's physical health, mood, and thoughts. In other words, depression affects the way a person eats, sleeps, feels about own self, and sees the world around him or her. Okay, so one may see depression as something that is just over mentioned or over talked about, but depression is real and it affects the whole body. It affects your mind, your mood, your thoughts, whatever it is that makes you function as a proper and normal human being. Depression can stop that from happening. It is important to state depression is not assumed but diagnosed. You can't assume that I have depression or I am depressed. Okay, sometimes we feel this where mood swings, we feel we're sad, things are not going the way we expected, and then the next thing you hear people say, I am depressed. That's not how to figure out or to say one is depressed. Depression is something that is diagnosable by the right professionals. Okay, so everyone feels sad or experience low moments occasionally. This does not amount to depression. Depression causes distressing symptoms that last for at least 2 weeks consistently, like today, tomorrow, the next 10 days, 14 days, or more. The person is sad, prolonged sadness. Of course, at such times, you don't just sit back and wait for it to get better or go see a pastor. No, at such points, you have to go and meet your doctor and diagnose whatever it is so you know the next steps and the best steps to take. So here and what we're here today is realities of childhood depression. So that was just a background to what depression is. And of course, like I always say, for we to look after our children, we first have to look after ourselves. You know, on the flights, when you're boarding a plane, they'll say, ensure your seatbelt is properly fastened. And in case of an emergency, tighten yours first. Take care of yourself first before you look out for your child. So in this case, I had to give that general overview. So we also have to look out for how we feel and how we are faring. So as shocking and disturbing as this may sound, the reality is that children can also be depressed. Childhood depression is very real. It's a very real problem, but not one without a remedy. At least that gives hope that it's not without a remedy if you happen to find yourself in this or any of the situation, any of the symptoms or risk factors that we'll talk about soon. So children are seen as people that spend all day, every day, playing, jumping, and asking 1,000 questions per second. This assumption, as true as it may be, childhood depression can alter their early years' well-being and development. Depression and anxiety is one thing that goes together. So most times you see a child panic, maybe panic of traveling long distance or fear of the unknown, fear of tomorrow, everyday situation. You could just see a child express some form of worry or anxiety, as it's called. So you just watch out for these two because they go hand in hand. It's not what you can separate one from the other. Okay. Okay. So yes. So that being said, childhood depression is different from the normal mood swings. You know, you see some children crying, they're cranky, they feel if one of their parents, mostly mothers, not there, you see them in all sorts of tantrums, throwing all sorts of tantrums and stuffs. Those are not depression. Those doesn't form the symptoms or the risk factors for depression. Okay, occasional sadness or feeling of hopelessness is part of childhood. However, when this feeling is persistent and prolonged for a period of 2 weeks or more, then of course there is need to consult your child's doctor. And then the pediatrician, of course, having seen these signs, we then refer you to the right professional to handle or look after your child. Okay, but at any case, do not assume something is wrong or everything is all right. We're to step in the boat and know how things are going, how our children are faring. Okay, so child and adolescent psychiatrist David Fasler, a medical director and clinical professor of psychiatry at the University of Vermont College of Medicine in Burlington, says that depression does exist in children. It is a very real disorder which probably affects between 3 and 5% of all children and adolescents. Okay, so because we don't have enough data and statistics on depression in children in Nigeria, I didn't want to import studies from other countries. Okay, so I decided to leave it at this point. But you find studies or research from countries like the United States and England, for example. They have very high cases of depression. Starting from age 5, you see where they've recorded and diagnosed children of age 5 of depression. And this continues and even high in children between the ages of 5, 6 to about 17. From 2018 upwards, the numbers keep decreasing, but it's more in the within this age range, children and teens, and the symptoms appear in such a way that if it's not treated on time, it affects the child's growth, affects the child's overall development. The child cannot live a normal life. And then that's why you see some people in their later age, they are being diagnosed with maybe they have high risk suicidal thoughts, and they're wondering when it started, how it started. It started actually from childhood. It started from when they were young, children and teenagers. So it's actually very important not to overlook it. And Dr. Fazla, who is also a co-author of Help Me, I'm Sad, Recognizing, Treating, and Preventing Childhood and Adolescent Depression, um, published in Penguin 98, points out that childhood depression often goes unrecognized, untreated. However, this compounds the problems a child will face in the future. So the risks of childhood depression, though not recognized on time, could be very high in the future. And in fact, there's a Harvard study. Maybe after now, I can send the link to Kella to share with you, or if I get an email from you, I will send it to you. There's a Harvard study that can adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, they call it ACEs, that outline about 10 factors where if you notice any of these conditions in your own life, then your risk of suicide is very high. Because in the future, maybe now or later, you'll be thinking the thoughts of committing suicide. So why are we doing this? To prevent thoughts of suicidal thoughts, because you wonder how it starts. Like you hear somebody committed suicide and you're wondering how. Is the person just in their right senses? Okay, it starts from somewhere, it started from somewhere, and it shouldn't be overlooked at all, especially in our children, because most times we tend to forget them and think all they do is play jump and ask all sorts of questions, not knowing that they have issues they also battle with. Okay, so here we're looking at 5 signs. What are the things you should look out for? What are the symptoms that should give you a heads up as a parent, teacher, guardian? Here are 5 things I outlined. 1 is prolonged sadness. and withdrawal from or lack of interest in fun activities. So you see some children locked in their rooms. You call them, it's time for game. They said, I'm not interested. Sometimes we leave them and let them go while we continue what we want to do. But it shouldn't be. Okay. While you leave them, at least it's not good to pressure them to poke into their affairs so much. But make sure you have your ears down, make sure you have your eyes down. Watch out for what the child is doing. Why is the child not interested in this fun activity that should ordinarily interest the child? Okay, and then you have mood swings, consistent aggression. So these are behavioral problems. You see children in school or even at home. You wonder, when did this child develop this kind of an aggression? When did it start? And it happens consistently. Some people say leave them as a child and the child will outgrow it, but no, it could be, like, we believe as life coaches that every bad behavior is a sign of an unmet need. So no child behaves badly without an unmet need underneath it. Okay, so find out why this is happening. Why is this child behaving this way? This problem is not without a need, and as much as possible, try to resolve it as quickly as possible as well. So you have physical agitation and difficulty concentrating. Mostly we hear this is a boys thing. It's a boys thing. Boys don't sit in one place. Boys don't they don't just concentrate. They are just always busy jumping around, doing all things. They can't sit in a place. No, it shouldn't be. Of course, there are times for a child to play. There is a time to be serious. There is a time to be involved in some form of physical activity. There is a time for everything, in fact. So if you see a child not stable, like something is wrong, why we shouldn't be fearful, or we shouldn't poke into everything we see. Remember, the golden rule is consistently. If this happens consistently for a period of 2 weeks or more, then there will be need for worry. There will be need for an alarm, and that's to see the right and appropriate authority, like health personnel, to help your child before it spirals out of control. Okay, so we have changes in eating and sleeping. I'm dwelling more on these areas because as a life coach, that's the work we do. Okay, these are like everyday life, everyday choices that we have to make, everyday routine that we have to observe. So if these daily life activities are not in the way it should go, if they are altered by one reason or the other, we shouldn't just say all will be well. We have to look at it and refer the child to the right uh, professional to help the child out of the situation. So we have continuous feeling of hopelessness or not being good enough at something. It's not only parents or adults. It's not only adults that have this feeling of um, not being good enough. Would have done this by now. I would have achieved this by now. Maybe I would have been married by now. I would have had my children by now. Or I would have had, not just one thing or the other. I would have had more money by now. Would have graduated and have more PhD. So it's not just adults that have these experiences. Children have them as well. So a child may be feeling, maybe this child's handwriting is better than their own. Why is this child always the one getting ahead of me in class? I'm not good enough. That's why I'm not able to. This child is better than me. And when such feelings sets in, the child is prone to bullying because the child doesn't have hope anymore. The child doesn't believe in him or herself anymore. The child is prone to abuse. Predators are everywhere. The child is prone to low self-esteem, and these are danger signs. You do not want a child to have any of these feelings. You want a child happy. You want a child to embrace life with excitement and hope, knowing that this is a stage. After now, I'll grow. You know, the stages of growth. We have babies, toddlers, we have school children and adolescents, we have youth. So a child should look forward to when he or she will progress from a certain age to another, and then grow in that milestone, and not having this feeling of sadness. I'm not good enough. This person is better than me. I can't even do this. You know, there are children that are like that. It should bother us as parents, as teachers, and we'll look at what we can do to prevent them or to help them in these situations. But once you see a child having these issues consistently, we'll try as much as possible to jump in. Okay. Okay, so here I have the risk factors. I'm just trying to rush. I'm almost done so I don't overshoot my time. So here we have the risk factors and causes of depression in children. So depression in children does not have one specific cause. Like you can say this is what it is. There are several and psychological, and environmental factors that contributes to its development in children. Okay, this could be physical illness. Okay, there are some very chronic illness that causes depression in children, and it could be sexual abuse, be hereditary, genetic, peer pressure, persistent stress or trauma, low self-esteem, excessive being self-critical, poverty, exposure to violence, and even changes in family dynamics such as divorce. So these are all the factors that combine. Among these are not conclusive, is not in any way all, but these are some of the ones I've highlighted here as some factors that could cause depression in children and that are actually causing depression in children. Okay. So, what are the preventive measures? What can parents do? What can teachers do? How can we help our children out of these situations? Okay, a lot of us must have experienced or been exposed to one of those risk factors I mentioned earlier or more, and are doing okay seemingly. Okay, and we'll be thinking, but these are normal things that people go through, especially we in Nigeria. We see ourselves as very strong, that none of this could cause depression. But the truth is, depression is real. And there's a Harvard study that proves that those that have experienced more of these are likely to have suicidal thoughts. So you can imagine a young child, or let me say a teenager, okay, consistently having these thoughts and exposed to technology. Like we have some games that let children commit suicide, or you have, I've had a child told me about a situation where his friends in school consistently tells him about this, how if you go to the mirror in the night, you will see 10 of you. Okay, and then this child is in boarding house, right, and constantly exposed to these friends that tell him all sorts. And the guy told me, I do not want to go back to boarding school. But of course, parents feel being in boarding school, the child will become more responsible. Boarding school helps with being responsible. And the child is saying, these are the things my friends tell me. And I'm scared to even look at the mirror because I might see 10 of me. So, what are these pointing to? This child can give up in life. But as life coaches, we look out for these signs and, of course, refer the child to uh, the professionals, appropriate professionals to help, because you see symptoms that are taking you to depressive thoughts, depressive conditions. Okay, but what we do as life coaches, we help the child through everyday life, so the child is confident enough to go through life seamlessly and thrive. Okay, so these are the risks, risk factors of not paying attention to your child. So, should we fold our arms and think our children are doing okay? Or maybe because we did okay after all of these experiences, life with us growing up is not the same with that of our children. So, we shouldn't fold our arms, okay? That's where life coaching plays a big role in equipping our children to go through life with confidence. Every parent is a life coach. That's one thing we must remember, and should be actively involved in coaching, nurturing, raising, training, and equipping their children. And what can we do? One of the measures, you have to develop a balanced approach to discipline. So instead of always telling or correcting your child, give them a bit of freedom to explore on their own and give an honest feedback and encouragement to your child. So do not always be on the fence or telling stop, don't do that, go, stop. So it shouldn't be that we're always poking them. Okay, encourage more outdoor play. Play is one very great activity of childhood, so we should encourage them, have a clear routine for them, and ensure they follow through. Encourage an open and honest communication line. So if your child had things to say, don't shut them down. I know a lot of us shut our children down. Like our parents then, if you want to say anything, they'll say, you shut up. What do you have to say? What do you even know? So we shouldn't toe that line. We should encourage an open line of communication, ensure a healthy, balanced family life, encourage healthy friendship with families, like the old tradition where parents those days must know your friend's family. Like I know most of my friends then, my mom must ensure she knows which family they come from, who is your mother, who is your father. So we should still bring back those old traditions. We shouldn't just assume that our children have friends somewhere, friends we don't know, and tell them all sorts of things that they're exposed to. And okay, so I'm done with that slide. Go move now. Support your child's self esteem. And how can we do this? Find things that your child is good at. Support him or her to develop the required skills in that area. Encourage healthy eating and lifestyle choices. Okay. Create an atmosphere of joy, peace, and calm in your home. No pressure, academic or otherwise. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, encourage healthy relationships with a mentor, a role model, a life coach. So, in addition to parents, relatives, and teachers, these other relationships provide children with a solid foundation of unconditional love and support. Encourage a close walk with God from an early age. Okay, so here is where I draw the line. So remember, you are your child's first role model, teacher, and life coach. Equip yourself first so you can equip your children with unconditional love and support. The action point to remember is to train up your child in the way he or she should go so that when he's old and out of your sight, your training will be their signpost. Do not wait for things to spiral out of control. Seek medical help timely and when necessary. So thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope you get one thing or two. You're able to get a thing or two from this conversation. And I'll be happy to answer any question and contributions you have. Thank you, Kella.
Thank you so much, Deborah Lucky-Deekor. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. Before I even go ahead, because sometimes I can get ahead of myself and start asking the questions and start giving the opinions and suggestions. It's a conversation, like I've always said on every session of Parents Connect. Thank you to everybody who joined in at some point in the conversation. Thank you so much. I see you all. So now it's time for us to engage, ask your questions, your opinions, your suggestions. Remember, she has been talking about childhood depression, the realities of it. Is it real? What can we do? What are the signs? That's what Debbie has been talking about. And if you have any questions, maybe you came in late, just jump in. signify by raising your hand or drop your comments in the chat section, and we will get to you. But as is the tradition, I think I like to always ask the first question, right? Yes, I like to ask the first question. So I would go first. I loved the presentation, and something that caught my attention was about play. Now, that is very, very, very true, very important. In fact, I would say that obviously the way we played when we were younger, it's not the way this generation are playing. That's outdoor play, I mean, outdoor play. And we know what outdoor play can do. In fact, interestingly, I saw a campaign, but in the US, done in the US. But the campaign was, it was done by a detergent company. You know, they're the ones that encourage play, almost says play is good and all. And this campaign was interesting. But the fact that it gave was very sad. They say that prisoners in America get more outdoor time than children. That blew me away because I know that I'm also guilty. When my younger brother, my niece want to go, I'm like, come inside, come inside. What are you going to do outside? Come inside. You know, you're always trying to shield them from you're always trying to shield them from what you don't even know, what you don't know outside. But I know that yes, the realities are that things are not really safe outside. You can't let your kid run to the next neighbor's house as we used to do then. So in view of that, what I'm asking is how can we still encourage outdoor play in a safe space, knowing our circumstances? I mean, everybody can jump in. Anybody that has anything to say about that question can jump in as well. Yeah, that's my question then.
Okay, so let me start. So if anyone have something else to add, they can jump in. Okay. So yes, like you said, outdoor play is actually very, very important. You know, the sun, you know, when you're talking about the happiness chemicals, okay? I do not want to go into so much science here, but you know, those chemicals come like the sun. There's something the sun does to the body. We need all of that, but the insecurity has made this a challenge in Nigeria. Okay, but then looking at it, schools are encouraged to let children play. These are one of the issues that I think the school reforms they have to bring, because there are some schools in some developing countries that talked about more time. They give more time for play than they give to studies, to academics. Okay, but one thing we can do is, if you're in a neighborhood where you have a secured, like in an estate, allow the children go out to play. If you're in a neighborhood where at least you can go out with them, like one of the challenges we have in Nigeria is also because of the economy, both parents work a lot, and the parents don't have that flexible schedule to send their children out to play. But where possible, I encourage, if you don't have a secured neighborhood, go with your children out to play. You know, these children, they call them leaders of tomorrow. You can't assume a child can learn how to drive except the child have been taught. So you have to first lay the foundation by going out with your child and let your child know that you're encouraging play, at least a constructive play too. So let me stop there and let others speak.
All right, thank you, Debbie. Yes, we have a doctor in the house and his hand is raised. So please go ahead.
Hello,
Hello.
good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Yes,
hear
good
you.
evening.
Okay, thank you, Debbie, for your presentation. So I have a question anyway. I'm not going to, like Kila said, I won't be talking about. So, but Debbie, you talked about if we compare the signs of depression in children as opposed to adults, it's quite easier to identify a child who is depressed compared to an adult. An adult who is depressed can be depressed for years and no one would know. he or she will come out happy, participate in social gathering and all of that. No one would know that that particular individual is depressed. But for children, it's easier to identify, especially when the parents they are sensitive to the changes in their child or their children. So now my question is, how do we make parents to be sensitive in identifying those changes in their children? Because like you said in your teaching, you will begin to notice that all of a sudden a child is no more interested in playing in certain food, in certain activities. So those are signs already. What it takes is sensitive parent. It takes someone who knows that, oh, this child used to be like this and it's no more like this. So how do we train parents to be able to identify that these are the changes that would lead to identifying that a child is depressed? I don't know if that is clear enough.
Yes, it is. It is. Thank you for your question. And the first thing I would say is gathering like this, organized by Kella, it's here to help parents. So as much as possible, one thing you can do is to send the invite. Okay, when you see the link, when you see the invitation from Kella, forward it to parents that you know. Okay, I know one of the things that made me, like she said earlier, I'm a trained lawyer. I had to leave my practice a few years into it so I could step back and look more inwards, okay? And knowing that more parents are out. Like the economy situation is not smiling. So parents have to go in search for their money. So how do we do? Should we just fold our arms and watch the news every day? You hear that a child committed suicide, like one that happened in one of those African countries. A mother was in tears. She was crying, wondering how she never knew that her child was depressed until she came home one day and saw the child hanging on the roof of her house with his tongue almost in his tummy. Okay, the sight of it alone could even make her go mad. Okay, she didn't see this coming, she never knew it was coming. So one of the things we encourage parents, like those that can be hands-on, encourage a role model. I don't know if I read that in my slide. Encourage your child to have a role model in their life. You know you don't have the time. Some parents don't mind paying all the money for lesson teacher so that their children can take top position in class, pressuring their children to make sure you get first, not knowing that these pressures are one of the causes of this depression in their children. There are more things you can do. You can get a life coach for your child if you know you're busy. A parent is the best life coach for a child. But if you're busy, if you know you can't be hands-on, parents that can know, also send the word out there. If you're busy, a life coach is there for your child. But if not, by all means, be hands-on. And when you hear of parenting conferences, attend and don't just hear those informations and pocket them. It could be one day at a time. Like we've mentioned, very easy steps here for parents to do, as easy as food. You know, I didn't go into details, but nutritious breakfast every day can change your child's life. Nutritious breakfast can change your child's academic performance. So these are little things that parents can do. So it's not when you go to all the conferences. Okay, some people jump from conference to the other, webinar to the other, but hardly practice these little things. When does your child go to bed every day? What are the routines you've put in place for your child to observe? What are your disciplinary measures? Do you just leave your children to do what they like? Okay, so I know I can go on and on, but let me stop. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for the insights. Do we still have any more questions, any suggestions, any opinions? We've been talking about realities of childhood depression. And for me, something that I think is a takeaway, one huge takeaway for me today has been that the depression is not about how you feel. It has to be diagnosed and it has to be a consistent it has to be consistent. The signs have to be consistent. Children have highs and lows just like adults do, but seeing a low does not necessarily mean that, oh, this is a case of depression. It is an illness that has to be diagnosed. You don't feel down and say, I'm depressed, or maybe there's no money in your pocket and then you say I'm depressed. But yes, I think that's been the major takeaway for me today. Why we give like 1 minute for any other comments. In the absence of those comments, I'd like to say thank you so much, Debbie, for enlightening us. If you could make the slides available, I'd appreciate. So maybe we could take it, share it to participants, because quite a number of people came in late today. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you for coming on today's episode of Parents Connect. Parents Connect is, for those who came late, Parents Connect is an online community for like-minded parents. Like she's saying, if you don't have the time, you're not so hands-on, maybe you really don't know how to do parenting in the 21st century. This is a circle for you. This is how they used to do it those days. It takes a community to raise a child, but now because of the digital era, everybody is separated. We're all in our own spaces doing our own things. So Parents Connect is that gap. It's bridging that divide virtually, digitally, using what we know, which is technology, to learn and relearn and unlearn from various angles. Thank you so much, Debbie, again. As always, the replays will be made available to you. If you're not on the broadcast list yet, you can send me a message privately, and then I can add you to the broadcast list so that you can get the replays. In the absence of any questions or any other opinions, I think we'll call it a wrap up today's session. It's been a fun one. Thank you so much, and good night, everybody.
Thank you, Kella. Thank you, everyone
Yeah.
that joined in.
All right. Thank you, Chime, Auntie D,
Thank you.
David, Emeka, Favor, Gerald, Linda, Queen, Titi Lokbe, Veronica. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good night. Yes, the
Thank
slides will be
you. Good
available.
night. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Love him.